Hello and welcome to Get Focused with Bill K and Gina Fay. Hello, Gina. How are you today?
I'm warm. It's really warm here. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining, but
You're in Hawaii. You better not.
I know that. I know that. I caught myself before I started. Yeah, it's all good.
So Gina's going to introduce our guest for this evening, and take it
Wait a
away,
minute, I
Gina.
thought you were going to introduce him.
Yeah, I would do well. I just learned how to pronounce his name.
Michael is with us today, and I've had tremendous regard for Michael ever since I met him years ago, probably close to 5 years ago in Ocean Beach in San Diego. I met him at the networking group, and I have just been fascinated to follow his progress, both personally and professionally. And he's here to talk about what he's been doing with himself, and I can't wait to hear it from his own mouth. So go for it, Mike.
Thank you, Gina and Bill. And it has been 5 years. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
You had just moved there too at the time, right?
Yep.
Yeah, now look at you, all Hawaii.
All Hawaii. What can I tell you? Life is good, man.
It looks like it suits you well. So I've enjoyed watching that too.
Yeah.
We'll get out there at some point.
You would be welcome. I have 2 spare bedrooms. So seriously, I don't make offers like that unless I mean them.
Well, you just did to the whole podcast universe.
Now
Nah.
that was you. That was not even
Don't email Gina asking for a spot at her house. No. Well, thank you, and thanks for having me on. I don't do a lot of these. I used to do more interviews and things like that, and I'm kind of out of practice. So I am not even really sure what to share, but knowing what I know about your show and what we talked about a little beforehand, I just maybe share a little bit how I have kind of created 2 and now 3. I'm kind of on my 3rd life is kind of how I look at it. And people use the term like chapters. I don't really like to use that term. I kind of find it a little cliche. But one time I blew my life up, and another time it blew itself up, and against my wishes. And so I think that's 2 big ways that pretty significant change can happen is you make some pretty outrageous decisions like I'm going to move to Hawaii, Gina, or
yeah, that was
or I'm going to move away from pretty much the only place that I've ever been home to live with someone I barely know who I'm probably going to marry across the other side of the country in the middle of the desert on a Navajo reservation, an hour away from everything.
Hey, no biggie.
Yeah, I hadn't even seen mountains for real before I drove to Arizona, really.
Right.
So
You were born in Chicago, right?
yeah.
Wow. We're at in Chicago.
I was born in Waukegan, which is north. I grew up mostly in the western suburbs, like Lombard, western suburbs, about 20 miles outside the city. And then I kind of lived all over the area for a while.
I lived in South Elgin for a while, about 5 years.
My parents moved last week from Elgin to southern Utah to retire.
Oh wow!
I was born in East Dundee, or not born in East Dundee. From when I was born until I was 4, I lived in East Dundee.
East Dundee. Cool.
When it was like farm.
Yeah, it was nothing. Randall Road was just cut through the farms.
Randall Road. My parents just moved. They lived about 2 blocks off of it at Randall and I think it's Bose. I don't remember, but it's every store that exists in America is on Randall Road, and there's traffic, and there's a Walmart, and there's traffic cops. And anyways, I won't bore anybody with more stories of rural turned suburbia, Illinois, but I'm from there. When I was 27, 28, I'm 39 now. So this would have been 2007 or 8. I moved to Clearwater, Florida, because that was my I'm going to do this thing. I always wanted to move down there. I always wanted to get out of Chicago. I hate the winter. I'm like the weird kid who never would play in the snow. Like I didn't like it at all. And I jumped at my first opportunity to get out, and I started grad school at USF in Tampa, and I only made it about 9 months there. because I was not ready to live on a beach and have I don't know. I was not in a mature place at that time. And I was like, I went down there with some cash on hand and I was like, I'll get a job like tomorrow type of thing. And tomorrow turned into like 2 months. And then getting a job became frantic. And then I got a job serving, which is what everyone in Florida does. And then that's when the economy crashed. So the restaurant I did get a job at and was working at closed. And there were like thousands of unemployed service industry people all at one time trying to scramble for the remaining jobs. And I was like, well, this is fun. It's time to go home. So I did about 9 months on that beach, and that really messed up my psyche, though. Like, I thought that was going to be my thing, and I failed at it. And that was hard to come back. It was like a tail between my legs type of thing, where there was a lot of people that told me that was going to happen. And I was like, no, fuck you, I'm going to do this. And then they were right. And and then I finished school, but I was going to school to begin with because I originally went to college to be a teacher. I did that for a year and a half and hated it. I didn't enjoy it. I couldn't get jobs where I wanted to. The hours are, teachers out there, I feel for you. The hours are crazy. They never end, really. You're doing stuff at home. They want you to pay for stuff for your classroom. They don't pay you a lot. When I was in school, when I was younger, if I screwed up something and the teacher told my parents, I'd be in trouble. Now, a lot of the time, if the teacher tells the parent yells at the teacher. And the whole dynamic of it was just mind-blowing to me. And I knew that I wasn't going to last in the profession very long. Like, I knew that right away. The politics involved in it. I was teaching U.S. government, political science, U.S. history to high school seniors. And I was trying to do some exercises to get them to like think for themselves and
no, see, that was
how would you do that?
Be adults. And there are people who were going to vote in the next election that was going on at the time. So I was like trying to get them educated on things, and got my wrist slapped by the administration for stepping outside of normal curriculum. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't gonna fly. So I went back to the service industry and started bartending again and made twice as much money in half as many hours, because America. And that, I was like, well, what was I doing that for? And that was fun for a while, because I kind of grew up with a party lifestyle that was glorified. That was the thing. I was really good at it, and it suited my lifestyle. It suited everything, and I did that for about 5 years after that, more years. And that's when I started to see the people who I was working with. And at that long in the industry, after 10 years, I was in like fine dining, nicer places, making pretty good money. I wasn't having to work till 4 a.m. I wasn't doing that type of thing. But I was seeing the people who were still in the industry in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and what their lives were like. And this wasn't everyone. I don't want to generalize, and I'm not slamming people in the service industry. It can be an awesome career. But the people I worked with still partied like they were in their 20s, and it doesn't go well. Like, it's not a good situation. Like, their health was trash. Their lives were like, it was just drama everywhere. Like, when people are drunk all the time, there's a lot of drama. And when people have tons of cash all the time and are drunk like, it's just that industry just breeds crazy drama, unless you're strong enough to like go to work, remove yourself from it, not go out after work, not partake in I wasn't. So I had to remove myself from that. And I started getting back in the gym and training a lot. And I thought, I could do this. People get paid to do this, like be a trainer. And I thought, I'll just do this. I'll go back to school. I'll get a master's degree in exercise science. That'll make me a good trainer. And then I'll be a trainer and I'll make all this money and I'll get paid to work out and I'll get in good shape. And I won't do those things anymore. The drinking, the smoking, all the things I was doing. It all like forced this lifestyle change on myself is kind of how I viewed it. And I went back to school and I got a master's and didn't really know how to be a trainer. They don't teach you that. I just learned physiology. Weird. They don't teach you like business or how to like have a relationship with a client or how to get people to do anything. Or so I was a pretty shit trainer. And struggled. Strangely enough, I didn't make a lot of money. And
go figure.
And I was working at like a Globo gym, like a big, big box, sell these pills and sell these energy drinks. And I had to do, like, when someone signs up as a member, I had to like take them around the gym and then give them a free session and like try to hustle them into hiring me. All this like really uncomfortable, like really hardcore salesy stuff. So that lasted about 3 months, and I was like, well, I hate this career. And and then I owed all this money because I just got a master's degree. And I was like, screw it. I was living with a friend. I came back from Florida on the fly. I had no plan. I had no money. I have a friend who was gracious enough to let me be his roommate in his condo and then turn his garage into a gym. And so I turned his garage into a gym, quit my big box store job, and started getting proficient at making repetitive Craigslist ads for very cheap personal training. And I'd undercut everybody. That was my strategy. So I was doing about $20 an hour personal training, which is way below industry standard for that. And I started building a business that way, and slowly, and was barely making enough to pay him the measly rent he was charging me. But I wasn't changing anything. Like, my lifestyle was still the same. I left the industry, but I didn't leave the group, the social, the anything. I was dependent on that. I hadn't done any work. Like, deciding like I'm not going to do XYZ anymore doesn't necessarily make you not do XYZ when it's things like that. And I didn't have any understanding of that. So I felt like a hypocrite the whole time. Like, I was teaching people to do this, this, and this, and then I was over there not really doing that myself. I found an article written by this guy named Paul Chek, who is a pretty world-renowned in that industry as a, lunatic for a long time, and now kind of like a, you know how people are considered lunatics and then the industry catches up with them and then they're like, this guy was a genius. He was so ahead of his time. So that's Paul. You know the exercise balls they have everywhere now, like the core ball? Paul was using one of those like 25 years ago, and everyone told him he was insane. And then now it's in like every gym in America. And there's about a dozen other things that fit that same, like the word core, as far as training goes, he coined. So I read an article he wrote called it was like the 55 ingredients in a Burger King milkshake. And it said, what the fuck is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? And it was listing all these like things with 27 letter long names and chemical add and all this stuff. And he's like, this shit is why everybody's sick and fat and unhealthy and has cancer and all these things. Why does our food have this and this and this and this? And I was like, I like this guy. I didn't learn any of this in grad school. Like, I'm going to figure out who this guy is. So then I found out he has an institute and he trains people and coaches and has certifications. So I went to one of his trainings. It's called Holistic Lifestyle Coach. And my instructor there was a gentleman named J.P. Sears, who is now famous on funny internet videos of ultra spiritual, like spoof spiritual videos. I don't know what to call them, but he's got like millions of YouTube followers now. Like, it's ridiculous. But he was not that then. He was just some weirdo that was teaching this class. And he challenged me in a lot of ways. Like that I learned there the impact of things like sleep and stress and like emotional trauma and the reasons why people can't stop drinking or smoking or eating whatever foods or doing whatever things are often inside. Mental, emotional, like things like that. And of course I didn't start doing any of that work then because I thought I was fine. So, but at least I was learning that to help other people do those things again.
Right.
And so that took my work from personal training more to like nutrition, life coaching, lifestyle coaching, while still doing all the shit that I was telling people not to do.
Right. Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. And yeah, just don't watch, just do this. And that went on for a few years, and I gradually started teaching classes, workshops, and it was okay. I wasn't really able to pay my bills. I sort of was. It was just my life was kind of a mess. I was really unhappy. And then I met my now wife, Mira, was a client of mine at one point. And then we didn't talk for a while after that. And then we kind of just started chatting on Facebook or wherever. And then eventually we became friends, and we both realized that we weren't happy in our life situations at all. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something crazy. I was like, why don't you break up with your boyfriend of 4 years, and I'll break up with my girlfriend of 4 years, and then we'll be together, and that'll be fun because everything sucks and we agree on all this, and this seems like this would be a good idea. And she was like, no. And then that sucks. So for 2 days I was devastated, and then she talked to one of her friends who convinced her to give me a shot, and I got a message that said, I just broke up with, I'm not going to mention people's names on this thing. And then I was like, holy shit, I didn't expect that to happen. This just got serious. So she came to Chicago and visited for a long weekend in February. Welcome, California girl, to Chicago in February, which was fun for me to watch. And if anybody's never been to Chicago in February, just don't.
No, yeah, agreed.
It's tragic. Like it's
no worries. I'm not doing
there's no amount of clothing you can wear. There's nothing you can do. She had to learn about ice scrapers, about salt, things that if you don't know what that means, awesome. Just be happy.
Stay that way.
We spent 3 days together, and then I was supposed to go visit her the next month, and I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna move. And she was living in Arizona on the Navajo reservation. She's a nurse. She was a nurse on the Navajo hospital there. And I just moved. I just left. Like, I just got all my things and moved. And that place is like a third world country. It is 45 minutes from anywhere where we were living. Like, to go to the grocery store was 45 minutes. To go to the gym was 45 minutes. To eat at a restaurant that we would eat at was almost 3 hours. So that's a little different than Chicago.
Mhm.
Just a little.
And I had severe culture shock. We had some like pretty solid, interesting things to go through that people go through if they do something like that and move in with someone they don't really know. And so that was hard. And then we moved to OB. And that hold on, that was the shift. When I moved, I got removed from the people I'd always been around, removed from the social scene, removed from the everything I was doing that I didn't want to do anymore, removed from all of it, because she never partied. She never drank, really. She never smoked. She had to eat a strict diet because of the health things I was helping her with in the past. Like, everything, and alcohol is illegal on the reservation, so there is no drinking. And so I moved to a place that was fully isolated from everything that I wanted to stop. The part of me that needed those things freaked out. Which I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I do, because I've done a lot of work. So now I know that at the time, if you remove all the things, all the coping, all the soothing, all the masking, all the distractions,
all the medication,
yeah, just gone, cold turkey. And then you put yourself in a weird situation with someone you barely know. It was like it was a challenge. I'll put it that way. But it stuck eventually. Like, all those lifestyle changes stuck. I didn't have a choice, but they stuck. Like, my only choice would have been like leaving the relationship and going back home, which was never going to happen. So we moved to San Diego. I was going to attend Bastyr University, which is in San Diego. They have a campus here that's naturopathic medicine, because my clients started getting really complex, like people who should be seeing a naturopathic doctor instead of a lifestyle coach. And I was able to handle a lot of it. I did some pretty advanced trainings, could use labs, that type of stuff, but I was crossing legal lines with the service I was providing. So I was going to go there, visited the school, visited the campus, loved it. We moved here. And then I was working on this fledgling online business that all of a sudden became reasonably successful. And I was able to pay my bills. And I was like, okay, this is going pretty well. Or over here, I have to quit that. And there's 5 years of school and $200,000 of loans. And so I just didn't go and never went to school. So we've been here for 5 years, and people are like, why'd you move here? And I'm like, for something I never did. And so we moved to OB. I loved it. She hated it. That caused some interesting challenges there. she likes the rural, the desert, the quiet, the anything. And we moved in on a Saturday in the summer.
In OB.
Yeah, right down West Point Loma, stuck in traffic in a moving truck, having to double park with cars and surfers and people and things. And it was in September. There was some fest. It was total madness. We hadn't seen that many people in 6 months. Like, we lived on a desert reservation. So that was not awesome right at the beginning. And so she got a job here. She works at Sharp Hospital. And I started building that company. And then, like, a few years went by. They just go. Oof. Like, it just went quick. Like, it was like, I don't know. And things were all right, but not great. And I still hadn't done a lot of this work. I got to the point where I'd identified some work I thought I should maybe do on myself, but wasn't.
You weren't there. You just weren't there yet.
Yeah, I wasn't there. So I had gotten from like total chaos, madness, self-destructive type life to a lot further along in a growth development as a adult in a good, I don't know. I don't want to throw people like that under the bus at all either, because that's a life choice. But into the direction I was ultimately wanting to go, I was like halfway there, but I wasn't willing to take the next steps. And that's when life did it for me.
Life stepped in. Yeah, that's when life.
Yeah.
Mira's gonna walk through real quick. No, you can just walk through.
That's fine.
Yeah. The back door's not open. All right. So that's when life kind of did it for me. I had been working on this documentary series that I probably shouldn't have taken on the role of doing marketing and digital marketing and all this kind of stuff that I've never been trained for. It's not my profession. It's something I learned on the fly doing the other company, and someone in our industry was making a documentary series and they liked how we do our stuff online. So they asked us to handle the marketing and the affiliate management and all this stuff that seemed like a really good idea. And we were like, yeah, we could do that for sure. He listed off all these things. And in my head, I was like, you don't know how to do that. You don't know how to do that. You've never done that. You don't know how to do that. And then when he was done with the list, I was like, for sure.
Let's do it.
We will kill that. That'll be awesome. We'll do that. And then I called my partner and I was like, hey, dude, you know how you like video editing and movies and stuff? He said, yeah. I go, we're making a movie. And he goes, what? I go, I signed us up. We're doing this and this and this and this and this and this. And he's like, do you know how to do any of that? I was like, but we're going to learn. First, I got to get investors. So then I went and got the investors for the project. Ultimately, we did well, but it was like 9 months of hell. It was nonstop, around the clock, frantic, stressful. I mean, some weeks I worked probably 100 hours. Like, I was starting to develop anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia. Like, I would freeze up, and there was times where I would sit on the couch and just kind of like do this. And I should be doing like 10,000 things. And I like couldn't, I would freeze. Like I've learned that my ultimate, when pushed as far as my stress can go, I freeze. Some people don't. I think people have different mechanisms.
That's the adrenaline cortisol reaction: fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah, I freeze.
Yep.
If I get pushed past the other ones, I freeze.
Yep.
I've learned that people have different expressions of that, or it goes in like a different sequence for different people. But for me, when it's at the ultimate, I freeze. And so I learned that, and that sucks to be in that state. And it was really unhealthy for me. It was really unhealthy for our relationship, for our life, for Mira, for everything, for everyone around me. We went through some pretty hard stuff, because of that. Outside of that, like during it was also like the hardest time in our marriage and the hardest time in my life outside of that whole thing was going on. And I got pushed to, by the end of the launch of that movie, and we did an online digital launch. I don't know, Bill, if you're in, I think you guys said that you're in digital marketing in some way, or do you know about that stuff? So we did an online digital launch of this thing, which I don't know, you probably know about launches.
Right.
That's hell. So, and there was tons of pressure because it was lots of investors' money. It was insane pressure, and then it had to do whatever numbers to justify what we just went through.
Right.
And so all this pressure. By the last day of the launch, I was no more. Like, I was at what I thought was my end, like the bottom, I was a mess, and I thought I was as low as I could go. And then Mira got sick, and she got really sick, and she started to get joint pain, hand, feet pain, and she had had a flare of that like 6 months prior, and they had said it was like maybe rheumatoid arthritis, but they weren't sure. They gave her some steroids. It went away. We thought, oh, that's gone. Great, wonderful.
Right. Move on.
That's why we have this sauna, because my friend who owns this company, I had emailed him and said, do you know anything about rheumatoid arthritis and saunas? He said, I'll sell you a sauna at my cost and pay for the shipping. And I was like, done. Because he's super nice guy. Randy, thank you. But that's why we have that. And then this time we were supposed to go to Mexico that week after the launch, because that's what you do after something like that.
Go to Mexico.
And she got really messed up from the steroids the first time. So the second time she got a lighter, like less powerful one, and did a little course of them when we were in Mexico, and it like knocked the pain down. By the time we got back, it was kind of, just moderate, and then it didn't go away. And then it got worse. And then it got worse really fast. And it got to the point where like she couldn't move, and she was in bed and couldn't get out of bed, and every joint in her body was excruciating pain. She went from she's a power lifter, a nurse, like fit, active, to bedridden. And I would stay up all night to help move her body in the night because she couldn't move. And she would scream when I would do that. And so if I wasn't helping her, if she was actually sleeping, I was over on the computer frantically researching everything that I could about what I thought was rheumatoid arthritis, reading books, reading articles. Luckily, due to the film project and my career, I'm super connected to all the best functional medicine doctors and practitioners in the world. So I sent a lot of texts, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of panic, frantic communications that when I look back on them now, it's like I can like feel that, and it's like, man, I was in a tough spot. And so at one point, I don't think I slept for 4 days, and we threw everything at it we could that I could find, everything I was reading. She was doing like daily cryotherapy. We were doing all of these supplements, food stuff, fresh juices, cut out all this other stuff, taking all kinds of things, tried acupuncture. We were doing like literally every single thing that I read that had any research behind it whatsoever to help get rid of this, because she didn't want to just take a bunch of steroids. Like that'll
mess you up a lot.
Yeah. And she was trying to avoid that. So we were going at it. We eventually found a doctor that we wanted to work with that was in Austin, Texas. So we flew there on my birthday last June. We spent in Austin, Texas at her doctor's appointment. We ran a zillion lab tests, and all functional medicine stuff is out of pocket. So there goes like the whole thing that I did for the
movie.
Yeah. So that was gone, and not all of it, but at the time, most of it. And then we worked with her. We brought in a team of practitioners that I know and kind of formed a team, and they all consulted with her and with her doctor, and they came up with a plan, and we implemented the plan. And I'd say about a month of just what me and her were doing, the pain was reduced down to from like an 8 or 9 full body to probably a 3 or a 4, and only in certain locations. Within 3 months, it was almost gone, and she was back in the gym. It turns out she has lupus and not RA. It's a lot more serious. And it runs in her family too. Her aunt passed away from complications of lupus. So mentally, that was like a really hard diagnosis to get. 3 months later, she was back in the gym lifting light, because that's her passion. Like they told her you probably wouldn't be able to lift heavy again. And that was like devastating. Or you can't be a nurse, or cause she's an ER nurse. So that's crazy, stress and pace and everything. So she didn't miss barely any work. Was back in the gym, back at work. 6 months was relatively symptom free, still some fatigue issues. And then in this May, 2 months ago, 11 months from the flare, she competed in a meet.
Good for her.
And she's doing awesome. And because of what we went through, and with my company that I do now, like online health stuff, I put together her whole team of doctors and practitioners that we had, and I brought in some more, and I had them all do presentations, and we did an online masterclass on autoimmunity. and to share that with our whole people, because they don't all have access to the people that we luckily did. So we put that together and we ran that a couple months ago, and that did really well. But during that healing process, like I said, when she got sick, I thought I was at like the bottom of where people can be. And then that happened. And I didn't know there was bottoms that people could survive, that were, it was like where I went last year, because I blamed myself for a lot of what happened. There was the stress from the project and other things that went on in our life, and I blamed myself, and it was horrible. Like I battled depression for a lot of my life, but this was different. This was I learned the term dark night of the soul, which kept being told to me, oh, that's what you're going through, as if like, oh, if you just name it, then it doesn't make me want to kill myself every day.
Yeah, right.
So I was like, cool, that's what it's called. Now can you run me over with a truck? Like it was, I tried different types of counseling, different types of books, meditations. Like the thing is, I know all the right stuff to do. And I started hustling and trying to, like, I have stacks of books now. I was researching different types of like trauma release stuff, because I was researching it for her too, because all that plays a big role in autoimmune disease. And so I was researching it for her, but for me, and we were both, and she, like, trying to find what worked, what didn't. I was looking online for like a hub, like a resource, like a place I could go where I would like talk about all the different types of things you can do and what would be right for who. Well, that exists in my industry, like ad nauseum. There's health websites like that, like thousands of them. It doesn't exist in the deeper healing space. And I noticed that because I'm good at finding stuff online and I couldn't find it. And so I kept that idea in my head that that doesn't exist and it should. But I eventually found someone that Mira really connected with. It helped a lot for her. But come October, I was struggling to get through the day. Like I was, like, each day was like, how am I going to live until tonight? Bad level of depression. And I have a long life history with psychedelics, and I was introduced to them when I was like 16, and they've always kind of been there and not there and then back and whatever, but I always stayed away from them when I was in like a bad place, because I was kind of scared of how that would go, because that can go sideways. And so I always treated it like a fun time thing, not a introspective therapy type of thing. Although I do research and I know how that's trending and how that's going, and I followed things like shamanism and plant medicine and psychedelics, and I find it fascinating that like research is coming back and all these things are happening. And so I was at a last straw, and I have a friend up in the Bay who had invited me to a men's group up there a number of times that was plant medicine based, and I didn't know much about it. I expected that it would be ayahuasca, which I know is an extraordinarily powerful plant medicine that I didn't feel like I could handle in that state. I was like, I don't think I can go into this. And he said, it's not what you're thinking. It's something different. And finally I called him up and was like, all right, dude, I don't think I'm going to live another few months if I don't do something. I'm open to whatever. So sign me up for your voodoo witch cult. And so he's like, yeah, I'll drink whatever the hell you guys are drinking. So, but that was still like 6 weeks out. And he said, okay, talk to the facilitator, see if it's a good fit. So I did. I talked to the guy on the phone, I'm like, whatever, dude. I was very straight with him. I said, I'm in a very bad spot. Right. So just know that, like, you need to know that as the one administering whatever's happening. And he's like, okay, we'll take care of you. I'm like, great. But that was still 6 weeks away. And in that state, 6 weeks for me was like 10
lifetime.
10 years. It was like not real. And about 4 weeks later, and that was the longest 4 weeks of my life, I had arranged to acquire some mushrooms because I was going to try microdosing them, because I'd read a lot about that and that I hadn't tried yet. And I knew a lot of people that had gotten help by that. So when I picked those up from my friend, he knew kind of what was going on, but then he saw me and was like, what the fuck? Are you okay? And I'm like, no, dude, like every day I try to not kill myself. And he's like, holy shit. He goes, what what are you doing on Saturday? And I'm like, I don't know. And then he described a thing just like my friend up in the Bay, same vague, discrete language, same like wordage, same everything. And I was like, do you know? And I said my friend's name up in the Bay, and he's like, no. I said, well, this has got to be, is there? And so I was confused. So he's like, just talk to the facilitator, see what, see if you jive with it, and then you can come. And I'm like, okay. So I talked to that one. Same line of questions I get from him as the other guy, same wordage, same language. And I said, are there do you know people in San Francisco? He's like, you don't need to understand any of that right now. And I was like, okay. And he said, I want you to consider the idea that not all healing needs to be painful. And my brain just exploded, because I thought to get better I was going to have to get worse. I thought in our culture, nothing is worth a shit unless you have to struggle and gruel and suffer and all these things. And I was like, that's what I was afraid of. I didn't think I could do that. I didn't think I could
man it. You couldn't handle it.
I don't think so. And when he said that, I was like, holy shit, is that real? Can that really happen? But I didn't know much about that. So I'm like, sure, fuck it, I'll go. Is it bad if I do 2 of these things back-to-back weekends? Because the men's group was the next weekend up in the Bay. And they're like, not if you're okay with it. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm at a place where I'm gonna do anything. I'm at the
desperate.
end.
I'm
desperate. I was completely desperate. And it took me a few months talking about all this before I could do it without breaking down. That's how rough it was. And the more you talk about it, though, it becomes something I'm proud of more than something I'm ashamed of. So I went, and I'm not going to get into details about that, but I had a really interesting experience. And by the morning, I wasn't depressed anymore. And this was confusing to me. I didn't even understand. We did an integration circle in the morning where everybody was supposed to talk and share about what happened or whatever. And I couldn't speak. I couldn't speak. I got too emotional. I couldn't even speak. And so they were concerned. So then afterwards, I met with the facilitators on the side, and I was like, look, it's not bad. I don't even understand. This cloud that had been over me for some of it, my whole life, and some of it was very acute, was gone. I didn't even know how to be. I didn't even know how to live from that place. I cried every morning that week because I didn't think I was ever going to get better. I really didn't. Honestly, I didn't think. I thought I was just prolonging the inevitable. And I went. Are you getting reverb or some weird?
Yeah, a little bit. It's okay.
Okay.
We have a producer who'll take that out, hopefully.
Okay.
I gotta say, this is astonishing. I had no idea that of this stuff, but we have just recorded twice with a colleague of mine named Laura Wade, who is a psychedelic warrior. She has come out of the closet. She's a therapist. She's a brilliant therapist.
That's bold.
And she's also, yeah, it's very bold of her. And she's also a big advocate of ketamine therapy, of MDMA therapy. And she's well connected. And you and she need to connect. She is absolutely, and she talked of, I'll very briefly, and you might want to listen to the podcast, but in the first one she came on, her mother had tried to kill her and her brother repeatedly. Jeez. Because the conviction was that they would be better off with Jesus. And as a result, she never slept. She went through somatic therapy. She went through drug therapy. She went through talk therapy, and it just didn't help. She did one session with MDMA, and she sleeps 7 hours a night now.
It's I'd love to meet her, so let's do that.
Amazing.
I'll listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
The medicine that I worked with at that initial ceremony was pretty similar to MDMA. I have experience with that in the past, but it's really powerful stuff.
It's amazing. Some of the statistics that she was sharing with us
with PTSD.
The high percentages of how it helps.
I think it's close to 80%.
72%. 72% of veterans with diagnosed PTSD, one treatment of MDMA. 3 years later, 72% had no diagnosable PTSD anymore.
They're close to, they're in phase 3 trials with the FDA right now, but the way that's going though is there's a lot of politics involved. So there's going to be,
unfortunately,
pharma's involved. There's all these things. It's going to cost a fortune. Like it's going to go that route legal, like through insurance with a therapist, it's licensed with all these things. They're going to charge like 10 grand a session.
That's Max. Max is in charge of that.
Yeah. It's a big, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, no kidding.
The politics of the psychedelic thing right now, it's very split. Like there's the people who are all for going that route, which I see that. And then there's the people who don't want it to go like the commodification, capitalist, pharma, expensive, regulated route. And they just want it to be decriminalized and have people be able to use it.
And there are huge networks. There are huge underground networks.
Yeah. I know.
So, and Laura is very connected with that.
Well, I would love to chat with her then. Yeah. So, because I'm gonna what I mentioned earlier, the platform that didn't exist that I was looking for, we're creating it.
Yay!
And so I need to talk to her.
Yeah, you do.
But anyways, thank you for sharing that. I'm excited to meet her, and to summarize the rest of the story. I went the next weekend up to the Bay and had an even more profound experience than the first one, and was able to start doing some work that I never would have been able to do before, and like on myself. And I went to 2 more after that, similar structure setup or group, and things have still been challenging at times. The last, like, since then, that was November 3rd. Things have still been challenging. Like I'm still kind of working through a lot of stuff, but that cloud never came back. It was like the glasses got taken off, or like everything changed. Like my life went from black and white to color. Like it was on, you're muted.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Gina, you're muted.
So you should see in your picture, you should see a little microphone.
Now she says muted. I think you can unmute her.
It won't let me.
Oh. Well, we can keep talking while she tries to figure it out, or she can come back. But it was profound, and I shifted perspective so much, from, you know, her getting sick and us going through all this stuff and spending all this money. It was like I busted my ass for this project, and it almost killed me and killed our relationship and all these things. But then we'll have this, and we can do this, and we can do this. But then when we got it all got taken away right away. And it was like this sick karmic universe joke that like dangled that life in front of me and then ripped it away in the most violent way possible. And I was bitter and angry and sad and mourning and for her being sick, but like that too. And like, it was this compounded thing. And once I went through these other experiences, I saw that had to happen. Like it had to happen like it did. And you're back now.
No, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. There's a saying, well, there's 2 different ways of looking at what happens to us in life. One is that things happen to us, and the other is that things happen for us.
Yeah, I was viewing it that it was all happening to us, and then it switched. Yeah. And I saw all the ways that it forced us into doing things that we wouldn't have done otherwise.
Right.
And in like every way imaginable. And it changed the trajectory of my entire everything I'm doing with my life now.
What a gift. What a gift.
And it's changed a lot for her too, and it gave us all kinds of perspective. But it really did switch from this is a punishment to this is a gift, and that everything that happened had to happen exactly like it did. And so this time, the radical shift in my life was forced on me. Instead of me forcing it by moving to Arizona, it was forced on me by these circumstances. And now myself and a couple partners that I met in those circles are building a platform that is going to be a resource for people looking for help, that will cover everything from what I'll call more conventional or square type of therapy and counseling and healing type work, all the way to shamanism and plant medicine and psychedelic therapy on the other side, and everything in between, and provide resources and interviews and articles and professional database. And
I would dearly love to be part of that.
Yeah, for sure. I was just waiting until there was something to show people to tell them. So we're working on branding and design and all of that right now. It's being built.
Exciting, dude. Very exciting.
But my partner with it is incredible. I met her at one of those circles, and we had a connection. And then we're like, "What does this mean?" And I said, "Well, we need to wake everybody else up." And she goes, "They all just started going to sleep." And I'm like, "No, not the people in this room." And she's like, "Oh." And then I was talking to a guy that I met there who is a bit of a wizard, I'll call him. And he did some stuff there that I didn't believe was real, like energy type work and crazy stuff that kind of made me sketchy on him. And by the end of the night, I was like, "All right, wizard, what's your story?" And he sat with me. I had this really profound experience with him, and I told him, I didn't even tell him all the things that happened. He saw them. I don't really know how to explain that, but afterwards I said, I wish that I'd have known about this or like other things or whatever. And I told him how I was desperately searching for this resource that didn't exist. And I was trying, and he stopped me and he goes, "You know why that doesn't exist?" I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Well, because you were supposed to find that it didn't, because you're going to make it. And you had to go through that to find that it didn't exist to be able to make it." He didn't know that I build online communities. He doesn't know that I do anything digital. Like, he doesn't know. He didn't
need to know that. He didn't need to know that.
He didn't know I could do that.
Yeah. He knew all he needed to know.
So then I went back to her and I was like, "Hey, the wizard knew what we were supposed to do." And I told her, and she goes, "That's brilliant." So now, and then she met this designer and branding specialist in person in Bali, because she's in Bali right now. And so that's happening, and we're building that. It'll probably be about 9 months from now before it'll be active, because that's a huge thing to build.
Oh, yeah.
And tons of content, but then we're also going to do workshops, in-person workshops, online workshops and events, transformative retreats. We're going to create a meetup.com type feature on it, to where our audience and community that are in various geographical areas can get together and connect, because people that are struggling tend to isolate themselves, and that's not
Michael,
good.
This is absolutely brilliant, and I have so much to contribute.
Yeah, I know you do.
Do you know Zachariah Kroll?
No.
Oh my God.
That was another episode.
That was another episode. He is a shaman and a healer of incredible magnitude.
Perfect.
And so he's often on Facebook Live. He does a lot of work with a lot of his friends. He's amazing. Amazing.
Well, I need to talk to him too. So this is why you asked me to come on the podcast. You just didn't know it.
Know why. I
Yeah.
didn't know why.
But these things just keep happening. Like, it just.
All I knew for sure, all I knew for absolutely certain, is that I've always loved you. I've always loved you. I always felt a connection with you, and that connection has never dwindled. So yeah, here we are, and woohoo!
You were a huge help to me, even when you maybe didn't realize that you were. So I still remember when I was scared to speak at the silly networking group, and you helped me through like what I was going to say. And since then, I've spoken to like audience
are you kidding?
500 people. So it's like,
I know.
But I was really nervous about that. So I remember that. And so we're building that, and then I was so impressed with this wizard that I stalked him afterwards and found out what he is and what he does and whatever. And I went and did a session with him outside of that room to see if he could still do that same magic bullshit I saw him do in the ceremony room, and it turns out that he can. And so I was like, dude, you have to tell me where you learned how to do this. Like, this is can I, because there were parts of it that involved us basically communicating without words. And I was like, I could do that. So does that mean I could do the other things? And I immediately went to like, can I learn this? Can I do this? Can I do this to other people? Not like, can this help me? Or like, I was like, I need to learn this to share this to, because that's
how can I be of service to other people?
Yeah. And, but I'm learning to find a balance there because I need to do me too.
Absolutely.
And,
where is this guy located?
He's in North County, San Diego.
San Diego.
Yeah,
wow.
His name's Andrew DiGregorio. But I found out that he had near-death experience. He died while surfing. Someone's board was off leash, hit him in the head, knocked him out. He drowned. They found him in the sand, resuscitated him. He spent like a week in the hospital, had kidney failure, liver failure. He had the like well-documented near-death experience type experience, and then came out of it and said, I could see energy. And I'm like, what do you mean, like colors? And he said, no. How would you describe vision to someone who's been blind their entire life? And I say, I don't know. And he goes, well, I can't tell you then, because it's like a sense that you don't have right now. So just take my word for it. And so he goes, I thought I was insane for about 1.5 years. And then I met this woman who said to me, like, you don't know what you are, do you? And she taught him what it was that he had, because people have all these weird gifts. After they have that, like somebody came out and could play the piano, someone else could do like complex math, like it's totally bonkers. And he has this wizard gift, and she started training him and then introduced him to a school in Northern California called the Luminous Awareness Institute, that he then told me about, and they kind of trained him there. And when he told me about it, I was like, well, that's too cool. I can't do that. I don't know how to do these things, whatever. And now,
I'm not good enough. I can't do
yeah,
that.
now I'm not. Yeah. So now I'm signed up and I start there in November.
Oh, awesome.
So it combines, well, I'm about 95%, but yeah, it combines like ancient wisdom teachings, like everything back to the Vedas and Taoism and Buddhism, and finding the universal truth and spiritual teachings with neuroscience, modern psychology, quantum physics, energy medicine and energy work, meditation and mindfulness.
What is the school called again?
Luminous Awareness Institute. I've seen their practitioners do things that I didn't think were real. And it keeps coming up in my life. I keep running into people who have trained there, and then I'm like, you did that? And so we're moving up to Berkeley in October. And so we will be up in that area, and it's a 2-year training. And so while I'm building that platform, I'm going to be learning that. Yeah, at Jedi School.
I'm doing an internal happy dance right now.
So thank you. So that, but if none of that shit happened,
I know.
none of this would be going on. And I think we're going to do some pretty cool stuff with this.
I know you are.
This platform.
I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to do some astonishing things.
So,
and I can't even get over that I'm honored enough to know you.
Oh, come on.
No, I mean it. I'm so honored to know such amazing people.
We all know. We all do. You just got to look.
I know.
Like it's
pretty damn cool.
It is. And there's amazing people everywhere. Like you don't know people's stories. That your podcast is really cool for that reason. Like you don't know people's stories. Everyone has a story.
Everyone has an amazing story. Yep.
Somewhere.
Yep.
And sometimes they need other people to see it for them until they see it.
That's my job as a therapist. I don't tell anybody anything they don't already know. I just remind them of what they do, what they already knew, and I'm their training wheels. I'm their training wheels until they're ready to go off and ride on their own. That's all I do.
It is, and you already know it all. Like you already know You do, and I'm learning that as I do this work too, because
you know all there is to know.
Doing a lot of the deep work through being opened up through this stuff has enabled me to do that, and
you were able to get
you already
out of
know,
your own way.
like you already know.
You got out of your own way long enough to connect with your essential self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's here. It's not here. You can't fix everything.
This is the seat of wisdom. This is the muscle that has the greatest wisdom. This lies to us, and this is the seat of wisdom.
I was at a thing recently with one of the founders of Luminous, and she told a story how the first time they brought in monks from the Himalayas to hook up things to them to watch them meditate, they started putting the things all over their head, and the guy just started laughing, and they were like, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "The mind isn't here; it's here." And he goes, "Put your sensors here," but they were neurosensors, so like they don't work there. Like and he was just like, "You guys are just come back to me in 1,000 years. Like, what do you? This isn't gonna work." But then still, they did put it on him, and they were like, "What is this brain?" Because he could like shut off entire parts of his brain and whatever. But he explained it to them that it was because his consciousness was not there anymore; it was here, and that they need to measure it here. But we don't have the things that can measure that. So he thought it was all silly, and then he laughed at them and went home. But yeah, so that's the long of the short of it. We're moving up to Berkeley in October. For a year or two, we're going to stay with Mira's family so that we can pay off her mountain of student loans.
Yay. Yay.
We could either do that for the next ever and live wherever we want and like skate by, or we can bite the bullet and be adults living with family for a year or so and pay off the whole thing in one shot and then be debt free and go wherever we want. So that's the plan. So I'll be leaving Southern California, going up to Northern California, and in the meantime, I'm spending my last 3 months here learning to surf.
Oh, good for you. Where are you surfing at?
I'm gonna be mostly in PB area, probably because that's where the people that I'm learning with go. Like Tourmaline and the easy places where locals don't beat up newbies.
Yeah, right.
And so not in OB and not by the jetty or not by any of those things, but wherever people who suck are allowed to surf. I didn't know that end of the culture around the surf culture, and we did about a month of surfing, Mira and I, when we first moved here, and we learned about that and had some people act like asses in the water, and I was like, "Bro, you're pretty tough out here, but you're like 120 pounds wet. If you want to do this over there, it's probably not going to go so well for you." But I was like, where's the whole like aloha bro spirit with the territorialism and anyways, I'm not going to go on a surfer rant, but I'll be in that area. Do you surf? Is that why you asked?
No, I don't. I swim. I just started doing. I started competing in triathlons. So,
yeah, good luck. I don't have that in me here. I have to have like for me, the surfing is like this is fun distraction while I'm doing the things that are hard. Whereas to me, the triathlon is just like the hard.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Yeah, but good for you.
It helps me with my mental, being able to stay focused and
like moving meditation kind of.
Well, yeah, because it's there's so much, and Gina and I have discussed this a lot. It's athletic. Don't get me wrong, but you just talked about our minds and everything else, and it's so true that it's such a mental game. Can I do this? Our minds are telling us we can't, which our body reacts to that story, and that's it's really more about trying to get past that,
Yeah.
But that's why this is all fascinating to me, because your story earlier, you had mentioned that you had experiences with psychedelics and whatnot, but they were always in a recreational type of way. And I'm excited about this platform and whatnot you're building because of the use of it not in a recreational way, right? And really, the mind is a fascinating thing to me. And understanding and openness and really learning about the limitations we put on ourselves because of stuff that we kind of are closed off to, right? Where the addition of learning how to use these tools properly helps us be more awake. And
They're
that's just
keys.
fascinating to me.
They're keys that have been being used for thousands and
Forever.
thousands of years.
Yeah, we're the first culture that doesn't. Like,
That
we're
doesn't
the
have-
first civilization in the history of mankind that doesn't use these tools.
It doesn't have any kind of
The shaman
initiation
view them as
ceremony.
technology. Like, it's
Yeah.
like it's a thing. It's like something everybody did. It's the connection to the divine, to the spirit,
It's
to
an
the source.
initiation. It's an
That
initiation.
too. We don't even have an
No,
initiation
we don't.
thing
We
in this
don't.
culture. Like,
No.
every culture has it. Every culture's used it. Every culture, but with guidance in ceremonial settings. There's nobody in 3,000 year ago Mexico just running around popping mushrooms, running through, like, it's never done that way. And recreationally though, I did have experiences that shaped me in a certain way that
Me too. Me too. Me
were,
too.
but I didn't know what I was doing. It was like
Me
Right.
either.
it was like I got keys to a spaceship and was like, this is really cool. Look at this. It can do flips. Not like, where can it get me? It's like, look, like, it was
Different. It was
you know,
different.
like,
It
that
was
poster's alive. That's weird. So it was that kind of thing, but I also saw, it helped me see through like a lot of this society's like bullshit. Like, I knew I probably wasn't going to be like a corporate 9 to 5er.
Yeah, I'm with you. Even
And
though I'm in a shirt and tie.
Well, I knew these things. Like, the concept of war seemed insane once I took psychedelics, and like the rat race, the general. I watched what my parents were doing, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, that seems insane. And I started to love nature. Like, I wanted to be outside. So it was trying. It was trying to be like, hey, buddy, come on. And I was just not ready for that usage. Plus, I had no guidance. I had no integration. I had nobody to talk through with it. I had no idea what I was experiencing. So yes, and we're still going to be walking a fuzzy line even on our platform. We're going to educate a lot around that, but we can't, like Gina mentioned, the network of people that there are. I also know of some people. You can't. I can't have that on the website, like, so it's like, it's still this like gray thing,
Right.
but
You're still
we're
have
going
to
to try
walk
to
the line.
get really creative in ways to, and we're going to talk about plenty of stuff that has nothing to do with plant medicines or psychedelics or anything. But for the people who are interested in it, we want to provide reliable information that's
information and linkages.
safe and responsible, and then find ways to maybe accidentally, possibly, like,
Laura,
facilitate people meeting each other.
Laura will be an amazing resource for you. I'm
Sounds
so
like it.
excited. She's just leaving the island tomorrow, but I'll connect the two of you. I believe that we're friends on Facebook. Yeah, we are. So I'll introduce the two of you on Facebook.
That would be awesome. And then once it's live, I'll come back. We'll talk again, and we can.
Yes, please.
Much before
Please,
that,
please,
I'd love
please.
to have you. I'd love to have, I'd really love to keep in touch and keep hearing from you on our podcast. You're great. Yeah, just wonderful.
Well,
I'm so
thank you.
excited about what you're doing.
I am too. It's daunting in some regards because it's huge. Like, it's much bigger than my other, like, in
Michael,
scope.
you've gone from
So-
strength to strength, and you've been daunted every single time. You were daunted when it
The
came
movie
to
project
presenting
was way bigger than
the
anything.
movie project. But remember how daunted you were speaking to the OB networking group until you did it and realized that that was something you could do.
Yeah, Mira reminded me of that. I think it was last night. I said I'm gonna have to do a lot of things getting this project off the ground that I've never done before, and she goes, "That's okay. You're really good at doing things you've never done before." And then she named off like a dozen things that I've done in the last couple years that I didn't know how to do, that I just winged it and figured it out. And she's like, "You're pretty good at doing things you don't know how to do." So, as Gina knows, and I'm better at this now, you'll be happy. I have a tough time seeing myself in that kind of light, but I'm starting to. And
Just keep practicing, buddy. It gets better and better. You're creating new neural pathways.
yeah, and things get easier when you don't think you suck at them.
It's all about
If that makes sense, like, it's the same thing.
It does.
Totally.
But if you think like, I could do this, no problem, the exact same thing becomes easier.
Absolutely. It's all about the stories we tell ourselves, and we have the option to tell ourselves any story we like.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's never too impossible to switch stories. Like it's
Nope.
never, I was at the point where if it is, it would have been.
I know.
And
I know.
and it wasn't. And I'm not saying everyone out there needs to go take plant medicines because that's not everyone's jam. Like Mira made a huge progress with something completely different that involved none of that, and I know plenty of other people who have. So I don't want that to be the message, but like finding
No.
your jam of what helps you and what works for you. But keep looking. Like don't try
Don't give
one
up.
thing and be like, oh, that didn't work. I worked with somebody who does NLP, and I was like, I just feel like I can outsmart this. So then that didn't work for me. They're like other things, and I just kept looking and kept trying and kept looking, and just don't give up on yourself.
You're pretty tenacious.
Yeah, I'm stubborn. Like I was like, I ain't going out like this. Like this is so.
Yay.
Yeah, but yeah, you can always change your story.
Yep. You always can change your story. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you definitely can.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, thank you, definitely. Thank you so much for telling us and sharing.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure, Michael. So awesome to hear from you again, face to face. Or
Yeah, you too.
yeah,
Are you on the Big Island?
yeah.
Where? What area?
I'm on the East Coast, halfway between Hilo and Honoka'a.
Okay.
And-
Mira's family owns a house in Hilo that they've rented to the same family for like
Oh no shit!
7 years. Yeah, it was her grandma's house, and when her grandma passed away, like her parents took it over, and they rented it to the same family for the whole time they've owned it. But it's somewhere in Hilo. I don't know
Okay.
where.
Yeah, Hilo's a pretty cool town. Have you ever been to the Big Island?
I've never been to any islands. We were supposed to go to Kauai right after the movie launched last year, and we canceled it when Mira got sick, and that was part of my I hate the universe.
Yeah, yeah.
But now I know that I will go there another time, and
And
that's
you have a
totally,
place to visit.
that's totally fine. Yeah, we'll do. I don't think I could go all the way over there and just do one island, so we'll probably
Good.
hop around. I want to go to the empty one. Was it Molokai?
Molokai. Yeah, Molokai's tiny and pretty empty.
Yeah,
I think there's a leper colony there as well.
cool.
Yeah. So I think it's a pretty powerful island.
That's still a thing?
But oh yeah. But I think that the most powerful island energetically is the Big Island.
Okay.
The
Well,
Big Island is so powerful. It's mind blowing.
I'll be happy to investigate.
Good.
And I'll learn some magic once I go to the Jedi school and bring it over, and we can
Yes.
I
Yes.
love the Jedi school.
do some
Good.
magic. All right.
Your
Well, it's
curfew is
past my bedtime.
Yes.
I really appreciate you guys and what you're
pleasure.
doing, and I'm glad to come back.
Yes, we'd
Good.
love to have you.
And we'll stay in touch.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Take
Thanks.
care, Michael.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.